The ruins of a once mighty empire floated in the void, cold and lifeless. Shattered ships drifted among the wreckage of a great civilization that had dared to break the one law whispered across the galaxy: never awaken Earth's warriors, for eons. The warning had passed through starfaring races, carried by those who had survived the last mistake. Records from the fallen civilizations spoke of their downfall, of how they had underestimated the sleeping giants of a distant blue world. The truth had become legend, and legends had turned into myth, but myths have a way of being forgotten. The Zalari were the last to ignore the warning. They were a proud species, their empire spanning 100 systems, their fleets were unmatched, their technology centuries ahead of most. When their scouts discovered the long-dormant remains of humanity, the Zalari saw an opportunity. Earth was gone, its atmosphere burned away by a dying sun, and its people had vanished into the darkness of space. But deep in the ice of an abandoned colony, the Zalari found them, humans, preserved in cryogenic sleep. The council debated, but in the end, arrogance won over caution. If humanity had once been a threat, they were no longer. The Zalari believed they could control whatever they woke. They broke the seal. The humans awoke. At first, there was silence. The Zalari scientists were surprised at how still the humans were, how they simply sat in the sterile chambers, staring at the aliens who had awakened them. The translators worked slowly, but the first words spoken by the humans were simple. "Where are we?" The Zalari explained in measured tones, speaking of the passage of time, of how humanity had been lost to history, of how the galaxy had moved on. They expected shock, sadness, perhaps even gratitude. What they did not expect was the quiet exchange of glances among the humans, the slow, deliberate way they rose from their seats. The lead scientist never had a chance to react before the first Zalari fell. The humans moved like lightning, their hands precise and lethal. They used no weapons, only their bodies, their instincts honed by something ancient and terrifying. Within moments, the research facility was in chaos. Security was called, but by then, it was too late. The warriors of Earth had returned. What followed was not a war, it was a reckoning. The humans did not need fleets, they did not need advanced weapons. They took what the Zalari had built and turned it against them. They adapted faster than any species had ever seen, learning technology in hours that had taken the Zalari centuries to develop. They did not conquer, they dismantled. One by one, the Zalari strongholds fell, not through planetary bombardments, but through precision strikes carried out by small teams of humans who seemed to know exactly where to strike. Entire warships were hijacked, their crews wiped out before they even knew they were under attack. No surrender was accepted, no mercy was given. The Zalari home world, once the jewel of the Empire, was the last to fall. The council stood in their great chamber, watching the skies darken as captured Zalari warships hovered above their capital. The broadcast came, not from a Zalari officer, but from a human standing at the heart of their command center. His voice was calm, cold. "You were warned." The transmission ended. The first impact struck seconds later. The Zalari civilization, built over 1,000 years, crumbled in less than one. When it was over, the humans did not stay. They did not claim the empty cities or the abandoned fleets. They left nothing behind but the ruins and the warning that had once been given to those before the Zalari. The galaxy remembered. And no one ever dared to wake Earth's warriors again. The ruins of the once mighty Zilnari Empire floated lifeless in the cold void of space. 1,000 worlds had fallen to their rule, yet none of their wisdom had saved them. Their enemy had been ruthless, unstoppable, but they had not lost to war, they had lost to their own arrogance. The Grand Scholar Rillios floated through the remains of what had been the greatest archive in the galaxy. Shattered databanks, torn scrolls, and ruined tablets drifted around him like whispers of a forgotten age. His forearms moved carefully as he reached for an ancient warning, its message still etched into metal older than his own civilization. Never awaken Earth's warriors. He had heard the stories as a child, old tales about the deadliest species ever born, creatures of war that had once ruled a single blue planet before vanishing. No one knew what had become of them. Some believed they had died off, unable to control their own violence. Others whispered that they had left, waiting in the dark between stars. But one truth had always remained: Every empire, every species that found Earth's remains had followed the same rule. They studied the ruins, stole what knowledge they could, but never touched the crypts where the warriors slept. Until now. Ilios turned toward his companion, a young scientist named Rilke. She was reckless, full of ideas that ignored the wisdom of the past, and she had done something unthinkable. "You opened the vault," Ilios said. His voice was calm, but his heart pounded. Rilke didn't flinch. "I had to. We needed to know the truth. The stories never made sense. Why would such a powerful species simply disappear?" Ilios felt a terrible weight settle in his chest. He looked past her, through the shattered walls of the station, toward the dark planet below, Earth. It had been lifeless for thousands of years. Its cities were dust, its oceans were still, nothing lived there, nothing should have woken. And yet, the beacons had activated, the silent alarms of the ancients had begun to pulse, sending warnings through the fabric of space itself. "Rilke," he said slowly, "what did you find in the vault?" She hesitated. "Not what I expected." "What did you do?" Her mandibles clicked, a sign of nervousness. "I activated a small device. It was buried under layers of protection, but when I touched it, it spoke." Ilios felt his body grow cold. "Spoke?" She nodded. "It asked me one question, is the war over?" And before I could answer, the entire vault came alive. Ilios turned sharply toward the planet. Below, something was moving. The land itself seemed to shift, great cracks forming in the crust. Then, the first signal came through their ship's systems. It was ancient, built on a forgotten language, but its meaning was clear. "Transmission received, warriors of Earth, awakening protocol initiated." Ilios grabbed Rilke by the arm. "We need to leave, now." She resisted. "But this is history, we're witnessing the return of—" "You don't understand," he snapped. "No one ever survived meeting them, no one. Every empire that ignored the warning vanished." A deep rumble echoed from the planet. Something beneath its surface was shifting, pushing upward. The scanners flashed warnings as massive energy signatures appeared across the planet. Ancient weapons, long buried, were coming back online. And then, the ground split open. A figure rose from the darkness. It was humanoid, covered in armor that pulsed with a dull red glow. More emerged behind it, dozens, hundreds. Their movements were slow at first, as if shaking off the weight of eternity. Then, their heads turned toward the sky, toward them. A new signal burst through their ship's system, overriding all controls. "Who dares awaken Earth's warriors?" Ilios felt his breath catch. His people had conquered worlds, bent entire species to their will, but never, not once, had he felt this kind of fear. "We are explorers," he managed to say, hoping they understood his words. "We mean no harm." Silence followed, then, laughter, deep, human laughter. It echoed through the ship, through their very bones. "You are not the first to say that, and you will not be the last." The warriors stepped forward, their weapons charging with a hum that shook the stars. Ilios knew then that the old stories had been wrong. Earth's warriors had never been defeated, they had never fallen, they had only been waiting. He turned to Rilke, his voice barely a whisper, "You have doomed us all." But before the first shot could be fired, something unexpected happened. The lead warrior raised a hand, and the others froze. He tilted his head, as if considering something unseen. Then, the voice returned, softer this time. "The war is over?" Ilios hesitated. He didn't know what war they meant, didn't know how long they had been sleeping, but he did the only thing he could. He nodded. The warrior was silent for a long time. Then, slowly, he deactivated his weapon. One by one, the others did the same. "Then we sleep once more." And just like that, the warriors of Earth turned, stepping back into the darkness of their tombs, the ground sealed behind them, the energy signatures vanishing. Ilios let out a shaky breath. Rilke stared in disbelief. They went back to sleep?" Ilios nodded. "They are not conquerors, they are guardians, and their war, whatever it was, is over." Rilke exhaled. "We should leave." "For good," Ilios agreed. As their ship pulled away, the warning from the ancient archives burned in his mind. "Never awaken Earth's warriors." And now, He truly understood why. The ruins of the Valtrex homeworld stretched for miles, broken towers standing like jagged teeth against a dying sun. Ash covered the land, and the wind carried the whispers of a once great civilization. But it was not war or disease that had ended them. It was a mistake made by those who ignored the oldest warning passed through the stars: never awaken Earth's warriors. The Zorak Dominion had been the first to discover the warning carved into the dead worlds they conquered. It was written in languages long extinct, inscribed on walls of crumbling stone and burned into the metallic husks of fallen starships. They ignored it. The Zorak believed themselves to be the greatest force in the universe. They controlled 1,000 systems, had crushed empires beneath their iron grip, and believed no creature could stand against them. Then they found Earth. It was an unremarkable planet at first glance, small, orbiting a single sun on the edge of a quiet galaxy. Its cities were abandoned, its skies silent. The ruins of human civilization were still standing, untouched for thousands of years. The Zorak scientists determined that humanity had vanished, just another species that had faded with time. But deep below the surface, something remained. The Zorak found the vaults, massive underground chambers sealed with technology older than anything they had encountered. The symbols on the doors were strange but held one common message: do not enter, let them sleep, leave this place. Arrogance blinded the Zorak. They thought it was a warning of disease or some ancient weapon that could no longer function. They cut through the seals, activated the machines inside, and laughed as the ground trembled beneath them. They had no idea what they had done. The first to awaken were the warriors of old, humans who had been placed in deep stasis, waiting for a time when they might be needed again. Their bodies were ordinary, but something about them was different, something that no other species in the galaxy possessed. Rage. Not the blind fury of animals, nor the programmed aggression of war machines. This was something colder, sharper, an instinct that had driven them to war since the beginning of their existence, a will to fight that could not be broken, could not be reasoned with. The Zorak Dominion, once rulers of 1,000 worlds, fell in a matter of years. Their fleets were torn apart, their cities burned, their people hunted across the stars. No plea for mercy was answered, no treaty was accepted. The awakened warriors moved through the galaxy like a storm, reclaiming their lost empire, driven by a purpose that only they understood. Word spread quickly. Other civilizations that had once laughed at the old warnings now whispered them in fear. Entire fleets were abandoned at the mere rumor that Earth's warriors were near. The few species that had survived past wars with humans knew better than to fight. They retreated, erased their records, and vowed to never set foot near Earth again. The warriors did not stop, they did not rest. They fought with a precision that no machine could match and a determination that no other species could understand. They had been created for one purpose, and now that they were awake, they would see it through. One by one, the fallen civilizations that had once ruled the stars disappeared, leaving behind only ruins and echoes of their past mistakes. The universe finally understood what the warnings had meant. It was not Earth's destruction that had been feared. It was its return. And so, the last surviving races of the galaxy passed down the law, carved it into the walls of their cities, whispered it to their children, and prayed they would never forget. Never awaken Earth's warriors. And if they ever did, they knew there would be no second warning. The ruins of the Vrax Empire stretched across the stars, silent and lifeless. The Excel Dominion, once rulers of 1,000 worlds, had crumbled to dust. The mighty Traloth Armada, feared for centuries, was no more. Their records, left behind in the wreckage of their civilizations, carried a single, chilling warning: never awaken Earth's warriors. For thousands of years, the universe had thrived under different rulers, each rising and falling like waves in an endless ocean, but those who had dared to challenge Earth had all disappeared. The warnings were clear, but arrogance was a trait shared by many conquerors, and so, the Aroth Dominion ignored them. The Arothi were a powerful race, their bodies tall and covered in obsidian-like scales, They had conquered more than half the galaxy, subjugating lesser species with ease. Their leader, Supreme Overlord Rethos, had grown bored. He wanted a challenge. He wanted Earth. The planet had been untouched for centuries, left in isolation. Their last recorded activity in the galaxy was ancient, their ships returning to their homeworld long before the rise of modern empires. No one knew why they had vanished from interstellar affairs. Some believed they had perished, while others whispered of a self-imposed exile. Rethos did not believe in ghosts or myths. To him, Earth was just another planet, its people long forgotten. His fleet descended upon the blue world, darkening the sky with warships the size of mountains. He gave no warnings, no demands, he simply attacked. The first wave of the invasion targeted the planet's defenses, but something was wrong. Earth did not respond as expected. There were no fleets rushing to meet them, no planetary shields activating. It was as if the planet had no military at all. Rethos laughed. Pathetic, he muttered. His soldiers landed in the major cities, marching through streets that should have been filled with terrified civilians. Instead, they found empty roads, abandoned buildings, and a silence that pressed against them like a weight. Then, the ground rumbled. From the depths of the earth, ancient bunkers opened, massive doors, untouched by time, slid apart with the sound of grinding steel, and then they emerged. Humans, but not as the Arothi had imagined. These were not the fragile beings described in ancient texts. They were something else, something built for war. Their eyes burned with a cold, ruthless intelligence. Their bodies, enhanced by forgotten technologies, moved with a precision that machines could not match. Their weapons, sleek and brutal, hummed with energies that had no place in modern science. The Arothi fired first. It was their last mistake. Earth's warriors moved like ghosts, striking before the enemy could react. Their bullets tore through Arothi armor as if it were paper, their blades carved through the invaders with terrifying ease. The sky, once darkened by enemy warships, was set ablaze by human counterattacks. Ships fell like dying stars, their hulls torn apart by weapons unseen for millennia. Rethos watched from orbit, horror twisting his features, his fleet, his soldiers, his dominion, falling apart within hours. The humans fought with an efficiency that defied understanding. There was no hesitation, no mercy. It was as if they had been waiting for this moment, for an enemy foolish enough to wake them. He turned to his advisors. How? They were supposed to be primitive. One of his commanders, his face pale with fear, whispered, "The warnings. They were true." Realization crashed over Rethos. The Vrax, the Excel, the Traloth, they had all made the same mistake. They had all thought Earth was weak, and they had all been wiped from existence. Desperation clawed at his mind. He ordered a full retreat, but it was too late. Human ships, sleek and deadly, emerged from hidden stations across the system. They did not chase the fleeing Arothi. They did not need to. The message was clear. Leave, never return. Rethos, now a broken shell of a conqueror, limped back to what remained of his empire. But he knew the truth. There was no future for the Arothi. Their defeat would spread fear through their ranks. Their enemies would rise, and soon, they too would be nothing but a forgotten name in the void. The universe had learned its lesson once more. Never awaken Earth's warriors.